I offer my prayerful salutations at the divine lotus feet of our most beloved Bhagwan. Respected elders, brothers, sisters, and dear children, loving Sai Rams and greetings on the auspicious occasion of Swami's birthday. Swami says that his birthday is the day that divinity blossoms in our hearts. On this sacred day, I am grateful for the opportunity to reminisce about my journey with our ever-present Swami. One of the most precious things that I can share about Swami is his omnipresence. And I'm sure many of you have experienced it as well. As I reminisce, you probably will remember your own stories and your own journeys. Swami entered my family through my mother's colleague. This was back in the early 1960s. It was a Saturday afternoon. My mother was working in the Madras Port Trust at that time. And her colleague, a lady named Indra, who happened to be the niece of the then state president of Tamil Nadu, she was going to have Swami's darshan in a place called Sai Nivas in Perambur. And she asked my mother if she'd like to accompany her. And for some reason, which we now know is Swami's call to her, my mother accompanied her. And what can I say? She went, she saw, and she was conquered. The very next day, my maternal grandparents and my mom's siblings, her sisters, they accompanied her to have Swami's darshan. This time it was in a place called Maika House. It was the bungalow of a devotee named Sri Venkateswaran. So they went and had Swami's darshan there. A beautiful incident occurred in this visit, in this first visit that the entire family went together. And this involves my eldest aunt, my mom's eldest sister. Her name was Karpagam. She's no more. She's passed on. So this aunt was physically handicapped. She had polio at a young age and she could not walk. So she had lost all sensations below her waist. So she would literally sit and she would drag herself, and that's how she was able to move. Now, if she had to leave the house and go anywhere, she would wear these surgical boots, and that's how she got around. So when she was also taken for this darshan, she had her boots on, but for darshan, she has to sit on the floor. So her shoes were kept near one of the trees, and they were sitting for darshan. As Swami came for darshan, my mother was trying to prod her older sister to ask Swami to see if maybe he can find a cure. Maybe Swami would heal her. They had known Swami for all of 24 hours. As naive as they were, they felt maybe they could ask Swami and Swami would be able to cure her. So as my mother was prodding her, when Swami came towards my aunt just said, "Swami." That is all she could bring herself to say. And Swami touched her head and he said, "Telusule, నీ షూస్ అక్కడ పెట్టి ఇక్కడొచ్చి కూర్చున్నావు. స్వామి నీతో ఎప్పుడు ఉన్నాను. పాద నమస్కారం తీసుకో." I will translate that. He said, "I know you have left your shoes there by the tree and you're sitting here. Swami is always with you." Very careful choice of words. He did not say, "I will be with you." He said, "Swami is always with you in the past, present, and future." And Swami blessed her with Pad Namaskar and touched her on the head. Without her saying anything, Swami acknowledged that, "I know you have a handicap and you're here to ask me for a cure. You have my blessings and I will take care of you." And that assurance, Swami kept his word until her very end. Swami looked after her. The very following Thursday, she got an appointment order for a job and her life was settled. And she, in fact, I'm sure many people thought she would be a burden on her parents, but she ended up looking after her parents in their old age. That is Swami's grace. Swami slowly drew every other member in the family. And my grandmother was a very simple, pious, devout woman. All she knew was her kitchen work, looking after the children, taking care of the needs of her husband. It was a large family. That is all pretty much she knew. Any spare time she had, she would spend in doing puja or doing chores around the home. Slowly miracles had started happening in the house, manifestations. And one time there was a picture of the goddess Rajarajeshwari Amman, and kumkum, vermilion, the red powder was falling from the picture of the goddess. And my grandmother remarked very casually, she was telling her daughters, "What is this kumkum? It's falling in the color of rangoli powder. It's like the color you use for decoration. Any vermilion, any kumkum you give to sumangalis, married women, has to have a mix of haldi in it, and it should be this maroonish color, brownish maroon color. What is this color that the kumkum is appearing? No sooner did she finish making that statement, the kumkum that was falling changed color, and it was now falling in that maroon color that she had wished for. My grandfather, he had a dilemma. He was an ardent follower of Kanchi Paramacharya from the Shankaracharya Mutt. So he felt, he was a little confused. He said, is it all right for me to now start following another guru? Because he was also drawn to Swami. He had a lot of respect and love for Swami. But he felt in his heart, am I doing the right thing? Am I betraying my Guru Paramacharya? No sooner did he have that thought, the picture on the wall, a black and white picture of Kanchi Paramacharya, Vibhuti started appearing from that picture. And my grandfather folded his hands and he said, Swami, Swami, I'm not testing you. I believe, I believe. Like this, slowly Swami made a connection with each member in the family. And he showed his omniscience. And he showed that I am here. I am a witness to every conversation you're having in this household. My mother and her immediate younger sister were once having a conversation in the morning as they were doing their chores, washing their clothes, and one was showering, and they were getting ready to go into the puja room to offer the puja for that day. And my mother made a comment and she said, we have a very small home and we've managed to have a puja room, an altar in this humble home. Slowly word got around that miracles are taking place and devotees started coming in to see these manifestations. So she felt, devotees are being disturbed when they go into the altar room. There's this big rickety old chair, wooden chair. It's taking up a lot of room. Why don't we move that out of the puja room? That way devotees have more room to move about inside. And so my aunt also felt that it's a good idea. So they decided to go in. The night before, when they had cleaned everything, this chair was left empty. And all the other items, the statues, the pictures were all left intact. But when they opened the door after this conversation, the chair that was empty the night before now had a picture of, a statue of Shirdi Baba sitting on the chair. The night before, this statue was in one of the lower steps. But lo and behold, the statue was now sitting in that chair with a mound of vibhuti on the head, on the lap, and covered with vibhuti. There was a red cloth that was covered with vibhuti. My mother describes it. It was as if Swami was saying, I heard your conversation. This chair is not going anywhere. I need this chair to be here in this puja room. So every casual conversation that happened in the home, Swami was responding to that in his own way. One Christmas, my mother expressed his desire to her father that she would like to have bhajans. It happened to fall on a Sunday. So she said, it's a holiday. Why don't we have bhajans? Swami says, all faiths lead to the same one God. And this was even before the Sarvadharma symbol was created, the Sarvadharma stupa. None of this had come about. All we knew is that Swami said, all are one, be alike to everyone. So my mother had this desire to have bhajans for Christmas. And my grandfather, being a devout South Indian Brahmin, he had no qualms. He did not hesitate one bit. He was doing Saligrama Puja in the house. When his daughter expressed this desire, he knew it was a noble desire. It was a sacred desire. He immediately got on his trusted bicycle. He went into town and he bought a picture of Sacred Heart, the picture of Jesus Christ where his heart is exposed. You see the heart. And that picture, he brought it for worship that day. And they kept it in the puja room and bhajans took place. After bhajans, when they went into the puja room to offer arti, the puja room being small, they would sit in the living room outside and they would just go in to offer the arti. As they went in, this picture of Christ had a dusting of vibhuti on it. Just try to picture in your mind's eye. Imagine if your car is parked outside and there's a lot of dirt. Imagine it would have this film of dust on it, and sometimes children have the habit of writing with their fingers. So this was a dusting of vibhuti, divine dusting. And with a finger, it was written that the cross was drawn, the Christian cross was drawn, and the Tamil Om, the Tamil letter Om was written on it. It was as if Swami was acknowledging that yes, all faiths lead to the same one God. Growing up hearing these stories, attending Balvikas in Chennai, this made an indelible impression in my young mind. And I slowly developed a desire to develop my own personal connection with Swami. During my pre-Sevadal days when I was in high school, my mother was regularly going for Prashanti Seva during the summer month of May, which was assigned to Sevadals from Tamil Nadu, from Chennai in particular. And that one year, she took me along with her also to do the Sevadal duty. And since I was a youth member, I was called a pre-Sevadal. But I too got to wear the same scarf, and I was assigned security duty in one of the West blocks, while my mother was doing Seva in the canteen. After the month-long Seva, we were taken to see Swami in Whitefield. In those days, in the summer months, Swami would stay either in Whitefield or go to a hill station like Kodaikanal or Ooty. Swami was in Whitefield Ashram at that time, so we were taken there for his darshan. So on my way, I felt, in staying in the West Block, I got to interact with very many students who had come there to give their entrance examination. And they had shared how, as a student, you get so many opportunities with Swami for his darshan, sparshan and sambhashan, where he talks to you, he blesses you with pada namaskar, and you get to interact and be molded by God himself. So I wrote a letter to Swami, and unbeknownst to my mother, I'd written a letter. I thought if Swami came near me, I would offer the letter and express my desire to be his student. I happened to be sitting in the front row. As luck would have it, the auntie that was in charge said, "Child, you're not Sevadal, you're only pre-Sevadal. Give up your seat to one of the aunties and go to the back." But nobody in the back wanted to give me a seat, so I ended up being from the first row to the last row. But as luck would have it, when Swami came out for darshan, he saw our group sitting in front of the Kalyana Mandap, and he said, "Wait." And Swami went and made his darshan round. He went into the boys' hostel. We did not even realize he came in through the Kalyana Mandap. So when I thought I was in the last line, when Swami came out of the Kalyana Mandap, I happened to be in the first line. So Swami stepped out and he waited for everybody to arrange themselves into lines so he could give Pad Namaskar. And I got to touch his feet and offer my letter to Swami. And Swami took that letter. And after that, I joined for my intermediate, which is 11th and 12th grade education. However, I was very, very homesick. And I wrote several dozens of letters to my parents, and they eventually did come and take me back home after a couple of weeks. But the next 2 years were a period of introspection, self-introspection, and I felt that I had lost this golden opportunity to be his student and to be molded by Swami himself. So I applied there for my undergraduate degree, and I did not apply in any other college. Swami was gracious enough to offer me a seat in the college, in the BSc program. And this was in the year 1992 that I attended my first summer course, and this was in Whitefield. I started feeling homesick again, and my mother happened to be there. Because I was homesick, she came there to pacify me. And I told her, "Amma, summer course is almost over. Why don't you take me back? Anantapur is so far away. How am I going to stay there?" And my mother said, "No, nothing doing. You made the choice and you have to follow through with that." And I'm glad she pushed me to stay. She left me with a thought. She said, "Anu, you keep saying you want to be with your parents. Of course we love you. We care for you. But Swami has the love of 1,000 mothers. If you call to me, I can respond to you only if I'm within hearing distance. Like now, as I'm speaking, my mother is in an adjacent room. She cannot hear me. But she said, if you call on Swami, no matter where he is, no matter where you are, he can respond to your call." So she was telling me about Swami's omnipresence and omnipotence, that he's ever present and he can hear all our thoughts. I brushed it aside, being very homesick. I said, "You have to take me back." That afternoon, Swami sent word to the staff and students from the Anantapur Campus, and he said, "I'm going to distribute saris for all of you. Summer course is drawing to an end. I'm going to distribute saris for all of you." In those days, we would sit in rows facing each other, and Swami would walk in between those rows and distribute the saris while we take Pad Namaskar. But that year, Swami said, "I'm very busy. There are a lot of dignitaries that are visiting from Delhi, ministers that need my time and my attention. So just come to the Trai lawns." You might have seen pictures of this beautiful lotus-shaped building, Trai Brindavan. Swami said, "I will stand in the lawns. You come in your batches, in your groups, and you accept the sari. No Pad Namaskar this time." Being very homesick and being told by my mother, "Nothing doing, you have to go to college," I felt, how can I go away without taking Padnamaskar, without getting his blessing? So I came up with what I felt would have worked, was a foolproof plan. I thought, as Swami gives me this sari, and this thought crossed my mind when there were just one or two girls waiting in front of me to collect their sari. It was happening very quickly, but I came up with a plan. I thought, when Swami gives me the sari, I would take it and nobody would notice because all eyes are on Swami, who's looking at me. As I collect the sari, I would accidentally but knowingly drop it by Swami's feet, and nobody notices. I'll touch his feet and take the sari and come. This was my plan, and it might have worked if I weren't trying to trick Bhagwan himself, the Lord of the universe. As he handed me the sari, Swami held on to it for dear life, and it was a mini tug-of-war. And it was as if he was trying to establish that, look, she has a good grip of this sari, and now there's no way she's going to drop it. And then Swami also gave me a, gotcha, don't try to trick me, that look. No words were exchanged. It may seem like I lost an opportunity for Padnamaskar, and it may seem like Swami pulled the rug from right under my feet. But he was reassuring me of what my mother had said earlier that day, that Swami is always with me, listening to my every thought, every word. Swami's listening, Swami's paying attention. This happened in May, and the first visit from Anantapur to see Swami in Prasanthi Nilayam was for Guru Purnima. And Guru Purnima festival, as you all know, falls in around July, and my birthday happens to fall in July also. It was a tradition then that if your birthday fell close to a festival, when we visited Prasanthi Nilayam, we could sit with a tray of toffees and sacred yellow rice, the akshantlu, and other items, cloves for Swami to partake and bless. So I too had a tray of toffees and akshantlu and all of these items. And as I was sitting for darshan in the front row, I was wearing the same sari that Swami had distributed for summer course. I have that picture with me. And Swami came and he took the toffees and he threw it. And he looked at me and the girl sitting next to me, who was also sitting for birthday blessings. And Swami said in Tamil, Appa Amma Vandirkala, good morning Solu. He even used the same slang that we use in our home. Some speak and they say Vandirkangala, but he said Vandirkala the same way we speak in our home. What that means is, your parents, your mother and father have come. Say good morning to them. Now, my friend and I wondered, what is Swami trying to say? Is this just an opportunity for sambhashan? Because we weren't expecting our parents to come. Darshan is over and we are happy that Swami blessed us. And as we are exiting, we used to enter and exit through the mandir entrance. There's a short flight of stairs, I think 2 or 3 steps from the ladies' side of the mandir. And as I was exiting from there, lo and behold, I see by the palm trees, I see my parents standing on either side with their bag and baggage. They had arrived there to surprise me because they knew my birthday was coming and that I was homesick. They had brought some goodies. Again, Swami was showing his omnipresence and he was telling me, I know, before you can even find out, I know that your parents are here. In those days, I had a habit of taking a letter and a handkerchief to offer to Swami at darshan. Anytime he came for darshan. And he accepted many, many letters, dozens of letters from me. And if there was a need for a handkerchief, if he had materialized vibhuti for someone, or if he was sweaty, he would accept the kerchief and he would wash his hands and he would toss it back at me. There was this one time, it was during the Spirit of Unity concerts. This was in November of 1994. The Spirit of Unity concerts were arranged and was arranged, and several leading musicians from M.S. Subbulakshmi Amma to Kumaresh Ganesh, Bhim Singh Joshi, so many wonderful musicians, Zakir Hussain, Ustad Zakir Hussain, so many celebrity musicians would come and play there in front of Swami, and Swami would sit through hours of concerts. So M.S. Amma had sung the day before. So the following day when Swami came for darshan, he made a beeline to M.S. Amma and he materialized vibhuti and offered it to her. And from there, these were the days when Swami was not followed by an entourage waiting to give him a kerchief or waiting to give him paper to put the vibhuti in. After materializing vibhuti for M.S. Amma, Swami made a straight beeline towards where the Anantapur students were sitting. Now, earlier that day, word was sent to all of us that we were not to disturb Swami by extending our hands in letters or taking Padnamaskar, again because So many musicians had come from out of town, and Swami was very busy, so we were not to disturb Swami. And as I mentioned, I had this habit of carrying a letter and a kerchief for Swami. But seeing that Swami had just materialized Vibhuti and he was coming towards me, I felt that it is my duty to offer him a handkerchief, and Swami can decide whether or not he wants to use it. So with trepidation, I held the handkerchief to my hand, and Swami reached for it and he asked me to give it to him. Swami wiped his hands and he threw it back at me. And then he pointed to the book and he said, take it out. He was motioning for me to take something out. I was so nervous because we were instructed not to offer anything to Swami. But the all-knowing Swami knew I had a letter for him. And brothers and sisters, I have to tell you, there was nothing earth-shattering in those letters. I did not pray for world peace. I did not pray for, world hunger to end. Nothing like that. All I would say was, dearest and most beloved Mother Sai, thank you for all your gifts. Thank you for all you've given me. And I would say, Loka, in those days, it was Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. That is all I would write. Swami took that letter and he went. It was just a gesture of his love and affection and his acknowledgement that I know you've written a letter for me and I know you want to offer it to me and I will take it. There was a period when my father was very much into numerology. I'm hoping as I'm sharing these stories, you go into your memory bank and reminisce your own experiences of Swami's omnipresence. I'm sure you can see a pattern to the stories, the experiences that I'm narrating. There was this period when my father felt that he was into numerology and he felt that he wanted to change the spellings of some of the family members. For example, his name is S. Narayana Swami and the numerologist had suggested that he shorten it, so he changed it to S. N. Swami. My brother's name is Ishwar, and he changed it to Ishwaran. So in my case, my father said the numerologist had told him that the letters in my name, Anuradha, Anuradha, he said the letters add up to the number 8, and the numerologist had said that 8 is not a lucky number. And my birthday happens to be 24th of July 1975, and if you add those numbers together, that also forms the number 8. So I was told 8 is not a lucky number for me, and I was asked to pick a different spelling, maybe add an extra A or spell it with OO instead of U. You name it, different suggestions were given to me. And this was when I was getting ready to leave from home to Prashantanilayam to do security seva. This was after I had graduated from the portals of the institute. And Swami allowed us to do what he called security duty. What security can we provide to the Lord of the universe? It was just an opportunity he gave us to do seva. It was for the most part crowd control and making sure people don't fall on him or scratch Swami. So when you're doing duty, you don't ask for personal favors or you don't go offer letters to Swami or any of that. It's very similar to what a sevadal would do. You just do the task that is given to you. So I had gone from Chennai to Prashantanilayam to do security seva. As Swami was approaching the area where I was sitting, he looked at the lady sitting next to me and he said to her, in Telugu, "Evaru chepparu 8 lucky number ledani, 8 lucky number e." Now, I happen to understand Telugu, though Tamil is my mother tongue. This lady is also Tamil speaking. She was visiting from California at that time. And she didn't quite understand what Swami said. And as Swami was telling her, he gave me a quick fleeting glance and he walked away. It did not even strike me. It was only when I was translating to this lady after Swami had moved further away, very softly I was telling her that Swami said, who said that 8 is not a lucky number? 8 is a lucky number. And as I was telling her, I realized that, 2 birds in one stone. Maybe she had to hear that message or she just had to have the opportunity of Sambhashan. And I had to hear that message that no, when you have my Anugraha, the Navagrahas, the 9 planets cannot do anything to you if you have my grace. It wasn't until much later, I'm married into a family. My husband was born and raised in Singapore and his parents lived in Singapore for nearly 3 decades. It wasn't until years after I got married that my father-in-law educated me and he said 8 is considered to be a very lucky number for a lot of the people from Chinese background. And he said they actually choose this number 8 and that is very, very lucky for them. He had pointed it out to me that in Chinese culture, it's considered to be associated with wealth, fortune and success. I did not even know that at that time. My since I mentioned my in-laws, I'll share a couple of incidents that they have shared with me again of Swami's omnipresence. My in-laws lived in Singapore from 1971 to 1992, and my father-in-law was teaching at NUS, National University of Singapore, and several of his colleagues were devotees of Bhagwan, and they would have home bhajans, and they would invite my in-laws to participate in the bhajans. That is how they slowly started developing an interest, though they had heard about Sathya Sai Baba when they lived in India. That being drawn to Swami happened when they were in Singapore, so they have the fondest memories of their time in Singapore. So my mother-in-law had a desire. She wanted to have bhajans at home, and the very first home bhajans they had, about 100 devotees attended. And during Aarti, the garland that they had offered to Swami's picture, it came down, and they actually felt, oh, Swami is probably upset with us. Maybe there's some shortcoming in what we did. And the devotees pointed out saying, no, this is a sign that Swami is here and Swami has accepted your prayers. It is a sign that Swami is present here. And they felt very happy. There were Amrit nectar manifestations from the pictures in the altar. So this was a period of from 82 to 92, for about a decade, that they were quite involved in the Sai activities. They would attend satsang at Govindaswamy Kalyana Mandapam, and they would participate in service activities at the local hospital, senior home. My mother-in-law would cook items for the seva. So once during a home bhajan, a devotee had pointed out to them that they had forgotten to keep Charanamrit, which is just water for Swami to partake of, because it's an extended bhajans and Swami would need water. So when the devotee pointed it out, again, they felt very bad that, they had missed something out. And no sooner did this conversation occur, the Swami's picture that was there, nectar started flowing from that, as if to say Swami was saying, I am present listening to this conversation. I accept anything you offer to me with love. It is okay if you miss the Charanamrit. And Swami was giving Amrit to all the devotees that had attended that day. Coming back to my own stories of Swami's omnipresence, I wish to recall an incident that happened in the year 2000. This was during the time leading up to Swami's 75th birthday celebrations. I was already married and living in America at that time, but I was visiting India at the time, and I happened to go to Prati just before Swami's birthday celebrations. It was a very, very busy time. Swami was inaugurating the Chaitanya Jyoti Museum very, very, very close to his 75th birthday time. And Swami had announced that he was going to distribute saris to everybody in the audience, not just the students or the staff or the VIPs or the permanent residents. He said, everybody who's assembled for darshan, I will distribute saris. And that afternoon, I happened to be sitting in the old students block. Before darshan, after morning darshan, when my mother and I were just walking back from darshan, she made a very, very casual remark to me when a lady just passed us as we were walking. You may remember the old days, there used to be an ice cream parlor just in front of, from the ladies' side. You could see the ice cream parlor. My mother and I were having our favorite raspberry duet, and we were walking. And a lady passed us, and she happened to be wearing a brown sari with checkered, with gray checks, silver checks. And my mother pointed that out to me, and she said, that sari, I know it's so beautiful. I would like to see you wear a sari like that. And I brushed it off, and I told my mother, Amma, what kind of a color is brown? It makes you look dull if you wear it. That is a color for aunties and, old ladies. Why don't you suggest something like pink and green, something that's bright and, vibrant? Why don't you suggest a color like that? And my mother said, yeah, you can get that too. But, this particular color combination, I would really like to see you wear something like that. Cut to afternoon darshan when Swami is walking around distributing saris. You may have seen a lot of videos of Swami distributing saris to students and staff, and they would typically be a uniform set of saris. They would either all be all white, or if they had a print, they would all look the same. But that year, Swami was distributing to everybody in the darshan hall, and there were all kinds of saris. There were silk saris, there were nylaks, there were cotton saris, Mysore silk, all varieties of saris. And as he came towards the old student block where I was sitting, I was in the third or fourth row. Swami, the student, was holding a pile of saris, and Swami was taking the sari up on top and distributing to each student. And he picked a sari which was green and pink in color, the exact same color combination that I had expressed to my mother that, she should suggest that somebody my age should wear. So he picked that sari, he looked at me, and then he reached forward and he made a conscious effort to not give it to me, but to give it to the girl that was sitting behind me. And then he looked at me and gave me a gotcha look again, but the story doesn't end there. He went back to the pile of saris. Up until then, he was picking the sari that was up top. But he went back through the pile of saris. No prize for guessing. He picked out a sari from the middle. It happened to be a brown checkered sari with silver lines. It was a silk sari, beautiful Kanchi silk sari. And he gave that to me. Again, he gave that all-knowing look of, I know what you're thinking. So there were multiple lessons in the story. And I'll share one more story and I'll explain how there are multiple lessons to the same story. Not too long after that, I was doing security duty in Whitefield this time. And back to back, I was given this extended security duty during a time when Swami was not present for darshan. So I was grumbling to my mother a little bit. And in the course of the conversation, she made a statement and she said, Anu, this person has came. And I was quick to point out to her that, there was a mistake in the way she had framed the sentence. And I said, Amma, there's a grammatical error. You don't say somebody has came. You say this person has come. She said, doesn't matter. Potato, patata. You understand what I'm trying to say. Go for darshan that afternoon. I'm given this duty, security duty. And Swami's not coming out for darshan. But there are a group of sevadals sitting waiting for Swami to come and give them pad namaskar. So I thought maybe there is a glimmer of hope that Swami might come out. And yes, Swami did come out. He came in his car. He was getting ready to go somewhere, probably to the hospital, general hospital. Those were the days that Swami would go and visit the hospital often, or the Gokulam. So as Swami was passing by the gate, the second arch or third arch where I was sitting, he asked, I could see Swami, and he was telling the driver, Apu, Apu. He was telling him to stop the car. Swami did not even wait for the driver to come around and open the car. Swami himself opened the door. He got down. He walked straight up to where the devotees were sitting when I was doing security duty. And he came and looked me in the eye and he said, husband has came. He framed the sentence exactly like my mother had done. Husband has came. I was shocked. I did not know what to say. And my mother wasn't sitting too far from me. She was overjoyed that Swami was talking to me. And then Swami basically came and talked to me, and then he went and gave pad namaskar to the sevadals. Again, there are multiple lessons. One, he's telling me, I know I'm a silent participant in every conversation you have. And also he was saying, you don't know better than your mother. If your mother wishes to see you in a sari, wear that sari. If your mother expresses something, you don't have to be a smart aleck, be respectful and, just go with the flow. And these were, so 2 lessons in these 2 incidents. Swami's omnipresence continued even after I moved to America. I clearly remember there was one time during a lunch break from work, I had to go and pick up some seva items there was a toy drive. We were collecting toys for, I think, Toys for Tots. There was some seva that weekend, and it was a Friday afternoon. I had to go and pick up some toys to be dropped off at this donation box. It had snowed heavily that week, and this was when I was living in Kansas City in the Midwest of America, which is notorious for ice storms. The weather was a little patchy that day. As I was leaving from the garage of the campus where I was working, as I was pulling out from the garage, which is covered parking, I had a cassette that was playing in my old car. And it was a cassette of Swami's voice, Swami's bhajans, discourse and Swami's bhajans. So I felt, on my drive in the morning, I had heard the entire tape. So I felt, should I maybe change it to another tape? And I had my cassettes, my favorite Bombay Jayashree and Sudha Raghunath and all of those cassettes. And I was thinking, should I change it? But seeing as how there was ice on the road, I felt, even if my driving doesn't save me, Swami's voice in the car will protect me. Thinking this, all of this is me thinking in my mind as I'm making the rounds and exiting the garage. I came out of our building, the campus where I was working, and I turned into the main road. Within a few minutes, at a busy intersection, I hit a patch of black ice, which makes your car go out of control. I hit a patch of black ice, and now my car was facing oncoming traffic, and I had come to a standstill. At that time, I probably thought it's my presence of mind. I can't remember if I called on Swami, But I managed to pull myself to safety. But now when I think back, I do realize it had nothing to do with me being smart or clever or having presence of mind. It was that thought that Swami, you will protect me. And I have no doubt in my mind that it was Swami protecting me. Even post Mahasamadhi, on Mahasamadhi Day, April 24th, 2011, when I received the news, I was heartbroken like most of you. And I picked up all the memorabilia, all the gifts that Swami had given, the saris, the handkerchiefs he had touched. And I was looking at them and I was crying. My children had a Tamil class they were attending. This was a Sunday morning. Our time, Saturday night is when Swami passed. So I got the news only early Sunday morning. And my children had a Tamil class and they had an exam that day. My husband was also saddened by the news, but we decided not to tell the children yet. They were both young and elementary school age at that time. So my husband decided to take them for the exam. But for some reason, I did not want to be home alone. So I asked, could you take me to the Shirdi Baba temple, which is not too far from here. It's about 6 miles from here. It's a beautiful temple. And just the previous Thursday, I had gone to that temple and done an archana in Swami's name. I'd given Swami's Gotram, Bharadvaja Gotram, Arudra Nakshatram, Swami's name, and I'd done an archana. So the priest remembered me. That Sunday morning, there was nobody at the temple except for the priest. And he knew, he too had heard about Swami's passing, and he gave me my space. I was sitting in front of Baba's Padukas and I was just bawling my eyes out. At some point, I think I'd cried so much that I couldn't cry anymore. And I think I'd reached this phase of no thoughts. My mind was still. No tears, just that feeling like when you turn off the fan, it doesn't immediately stop. It slowly stops. I just had those tears that I was holding back. And I could, even now, if I close my eyes, I can feel that. I could distinctly smell Swami's fragrance, that unique fragrance. And I could feel the brush of his robe on my lap. And I heard his soft and tender voice. He spoke to me like he was talking to a 6-year-old child that was crying because she'd lost her favorite toy. And I had my eyes closed the entire time, and Swami's telling me, why are you crying? I have not gone anywhere. I'm always with you. And brothers and sisters, as I just mentioned, if a fan is turned off, the switch is turned off, the fan will slowly come to a stop. If you're crying, you don't just stop crying. As soon as Swami gave me this experience, it's as if a faucet was closed, a tap was closed, no more tears. As if we're singing in a bhajan here, no more tears, no more sorrow, no more death. Just minutes before that, I had informed the Balvikas SSC coordinator, I am in no shape to teach the SSC class this Sunday evening. But somehow Swami gave me the strength and I called him back and said, yes, I will teach today's class. And that class I ended up talking about my experiences, several of which I shared today. And it just, the whole classroom, from being sad and depressed, everybody felt uplifted and they realized Swami is not this 5'4" body. That's not Swami. He is omnipresent. He is everywhere. He's Ninta Venta Janta. He's always with you, beside you, behind you. He's also in you. And he has not gone anywhere. That reassurance I was able to leave in the impressionable young minds in my SSC classroom that day. And on this birthday, Swami's 96th birthday, I pray that we may all experience Swami's presence in our lives and take small steps to sanctify our lives. Thank you all for your patient listening. Jai Sai Ram.